Hello everyone and welcome back for another episode of Indie Impressions. My name is Nick and today we're going to be checking out something called STL RNNR, STL Runner. I think that's an abbreviation going along with the minimalism theme and the fact that this game is highly inspired by the STL art movement, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, which is, spearheaded by Mondrian, the guy that did the white background with the grid and the red, blue, yellow squares on stuff. Might be familiar with it. Anyway, this is a 3D first-person runner, and if you remember a little while ago, I actually had talked about this game called Fragmentation, and I was sort of hoping that maybe there would be a game that could fulfill some of my requests to have a first-person runner that does all sorts of randomly generated stuff. It turns out, well, I guess we found it already. That was pretty quick, right? So this is another game from LD26 with the theme minimalism, and we are just going to get right into things. I have played a little bit of this one to get familiar with it. I actually found it very addictive, and I'm going to go through it with you guys. It shouldn't be anything too complex. It's actually fairly accessible and fairly easy to play. It does support the 360 controller natively, which is pretty awesome, but in this case I found the look mechanic to be a little bit too slow for my taste, so I had to use the mouse and keyboard. And yet again, I have to complain, unfortunately, the mouse cursor does not appear to be locked into the screen for whatever reason, and since I have two monitors, in the process of looking around, I will often have my mouse cursor go outside of the actual screen, which is, it's kind of annoying, I won't lie, and occasionally it even shows up when I'm recording in Fraps. Although I have the cursor turned off, it might still end up in the video frame for just a moment or two. Anyway, at the game at hand here, we are going to be traversing a series of blocks which are laid out in sort of a modular bunch of chunks. The game is randomly generated to a degree, but it's randomly generated from a pile of like templates. So you'll run into like this swirly pattern of cubes, you'll run into these little pre-created rooms, and then you'll keep running into patterns like this where we've got these fragmented planes and stuff kind of hanging out in the air. It's really good that this is randomly generated, and I actually really like that element. I just wish there were a few more templates for it to draw from. But again, keeping in mind, this game was created in 48 hours and it has a freaking tutorial, music, all kinds of randomly generated elements to it. Pretty nice graphics and pretty refined feeling controls. I can't be too upset, so it looks like I've taken a little too long and the ground has actually fallen and given way underneath me. So I've ran 194 meters. I think I can do better, and my top score there is 346 meters, as you can see. These doors that spin around always get me. But let's talk about the look of the game for a moment. It's very simple, obviously. We are following along with the minimalist theme, so that should be expected. I do wonder, though, if maybe we could do a little bit more with the background. I know it's, again, 48 hours isn't very long to consider something like that. But I would love to see a little bit of detail going on off in the distance, even if it's super sparse, maybe just that we're getting closer to something or something's shifting around, just, a sort of abstract, surreal qualities to it that could probably lend to give this a little bit more of a feeling of context. Just right now we're really just hanging out in space, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but I just wonder if it might not look better with a little bit more. Again, though, minimalism, so maybe this was the right choice, I'm not sure. But if we were to take this game outside of the competition, I imagine that more could be done with it. It sort of reminds me a little bit of Star Fox at times with these pillars rotating around in space like that. Looking at the neon aesthetic of it, I find it very pretty in general. Whoa, okay, I guess the floor broke apart right when I landed on it. There are definitely some hazards that seem to be harder than others to get through, and we can hit R to reset at any point. As well as the start button on the 360 controller. I really do like the traversal mechanics, being able to find your path through all of these things, and sometimes take a path that isn't necessarily obvious to get through something. Like these pillars off on the right and left sides, I could probably get on those if I really wanted to, but that's probably not going to be an option for me. There we go. Oh, see, this part I gotta wait quite a while to get through, which I'm not super keen on. There we go. It's quite difficult at this point. I think this is probably one of the harder... this and the doors are probably two of the hardest puzzles or jumping sequences to get through. I would have liked to also seen some maybe difficulty ramping as things get going. Maybe start out at a certain group of templates and then work your way towards the harder ones. Could have been nice. That way you don't end up with too many, terrible jumps right at the very beginning. Granted, that was completely my fault. That was a very doable jump, as was that one, but You know, you have to kind of throw bodies at the wall until something sticks, I suppose. I know that's not really a figure of speech, but we are trying our best here. Try and take it the long way this time. I do want to talk about when you go into sprint mode by pressing shift, you'll notice the whole screen gets like a light-colored tint to it to indicate that you're running. That makes sense, I guess, to indicate that you're running, but at the same time I find that it sort of obscures my vision a little bit. I mean, it's not terribly bad. I certainly wouldn't say that it's a game-breaking thing or anything, but it definitely does distract me a little bit. It almost makes me not want to run at times, but, you know, it seems like in a way you should probably be running most of the time, given that most of these jumps seem to be optimized for that distance, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, falling again. Obviously, there's no penalty for death or anything, because it's really just a runner-style game. You try and go as far as you can each time, and you make stupid mistakes all the time. That'll happen. You can see already we've kind of run through most of the different templates here. And as things start to get longer and we just get further in the game, you'll just start to run into the same templates looping over again. You know, if you're fortunate enough to get that far. So, really, minor complaints so far. Very minimal stuff, which is probably good, you know, given the theme. So, yeah, just a little bit of difficulty balancing. The controls were already tweaked, I believe. At first, I believe they were far too sensitive, is what I was reading on the LD page for this one. The aesthetic could definitely use a little bit more refinement, but I, you know, again, don't really fault it for being done in 48 hours. Pretty good. I feel like I am generally in pretty good control of my character. First-person platforming is always something that you have to approach a bit carefully. It requires some definite nuance and some really good sense of, like, friction on these surfaces to have a good idea of where your character's, you know, sense of self or body or mass would be. Oh, well, that was a little silly. I actually fell on the platform, then fell off. But yeah, a little bit more tweaking, perhaps. Get the sense of momentum feeling just perfect. I mean, it's pretty close as it is. It's not too far off, but I could probably still do with a little bit more catering toward, you know, movement speed and progression, and have that reflected in some of these obstacles, perhaps. You know, as it stands, some of these obstacles come across a little bit like elements of the show Wipeout, that silly, you know, comedy show where people try and run over these foam rubber ridiculous obstacles and then get kicked into water. You know, there's nothing wrong with that, but it feels a little bit like it betrays the somewhat sci-fi aesthetic, and I'm not sure if that meshes necessarily with the whole Steel thing. It definitely seems more a little, well, at least to me anyway, a little bit more sci-fi than that, but, you know, there's nothing wrong with that either. I actually think that aesthetic works just fine. I don't feel a ton of tension in general from when the blocks are about to fall under. Maybe you could add a little bit of an audio cue to that. I don't know what I was trying to do there. That jump didn't make any sense. You know, let us know that the floor is about to give way underneath us with an audio cue in some form. I'm not talking like Sonic the Hedgehog drowning, needs a bubble, that kind of stuff. That's just, you know, panic-inducing. We don't need that. We just want maybe a little something, or, you know, maybe a little a set of bars at the bottom of the screen that could slowly tick down as they get closer. The you know, the floor going away gets closer to you. Just something to give you a little bit of perspective as to where you stand in that situation. That's if that even is a factor. I mean, I could kind of get away with just not even remembering that the floor is even doing that, and I think everything would be just fine like that. And not even necessary really to even do that. Just keep a time trials type score. You know, let people know what their time is, make them rush. But I guess, you know, not every run is created equally, so you kind of do need some sort of thing to keep people moving. Oh, come on, I landed on that. Just because it kind of fell through the floor there. Anyway, I was having a pretty good run on that one. All in all, though, I think this is definitely one of the better games in the LD competition, again, that I have discovered. I'm on a really good roll here with the entries that I've chosen to review. In general, the stuff that I've found seems to be, like, way higher quality this cycle of the competition than it was last time, and maybe I just picked some iffy ones last time or something, but in general, just the quality is much, much better. Also, maybe people are now familiar with the competition, maybe they've done a couple of games, or are just becoming better as game developers. I mean, anything's possible. Did you see that jump? That was fairly decent there. But yeah, I feel pretty good about this game, and in general, this is something that could easily be turned into a full game, and I would have no problem paying a few bucks for. I think it's quite addictive, it's quite easy to get into, it's accessible. I grant that it's not for everybody, it's definitely a bit on the difficult side if you're not into this style of gameplay. You have to be fairly competent at navigating these first-person perspective style jumping puzzles, which obviously, I mean, that is the entire game. So if you're not one to be able to do that in general, you're probably going to find this pretty frustrating. But also, you know, if you aren't familiar with this or haven't played games like Mirror's Edge in general, this might be a cool way for you to get into that style of thing. Oh, wow, really? Okay, see, that time I had absolutely no idea that the ground was catching up with me. I thought I was actually keeping pretty good pace. I'm going to guess that as you get further on in the challenge, it does accelerate towards you. I could be wrong, but I just have a feeling that would make sense from a game design perspective. There is a chance maybe I could see things falling away from me on the edges, and that's a good way to get a hint as to whether or not I'm getting close. Regardless, I didn't really notice that, so I don't know. So I think we're probably going to wrap this one up. STL Runner, or STL Runner, I'm not sure which way to pronounce that, but it is very good, definitely recommended. Download link is going to be right in the description, so you guys can feel free to go download this, give it a try yourself, see if you can beat my high score of 346 meters. It's harder than it sounds, probably. But yeah, give it a few tries, see what you think. Let me know in the comments what you think about this game. I'm very curious of your input, as well as what you think could be done to improve this game, whether or not you think this is something you might be interested in purchasing if it became a full game, and generally just your impressions of it all over, especially if you actually downloaded this one and tried it. And like I said, the download link is going to be right in the description, so feel free to go do it. And give it a vote, too, on the LD site, if you can. Definitely, I'm sure the developer would appreciate it. Judging is still going on for, I don't know, like another 18 or so days as of the time of this recording, so there is a little bit of time left to get your votes in. But, you know, the sooner the better. I'm sure it helps quite a bit. Okay, so I seem to be in a bit of a quagmire here before you guys start to complain about how bad my gameplay is. I think we will wrap things up for real. And notice you can see everything in this little room start to shake and fall apart. It's kind of a cool effect, actually. Although when the tiles glitch through each other, it's a little iffy. Sometimes you can see them taking up the same space, and then they sort of blend together in a little bit of an odd way, and you'll see them flicker like that tile over there on the right, which seems to be much brighter than all the other tiles and actually gives off a light cloud or something. I'm not sure what to call that exactly. You know, neon glow. Right, anyway, so indie-impressions.com if you want to check out all the old episodes in the series. We've got hundreds and hundreds of them all neatly categorized and cataloged for you. Feel free to browse them by tags, genres, distribution methods, or even if you just want to check out all the other stuff from the LD competitions, those are all tagged as well, so feel free to go browse through them. There's also a Facebook page devoted to this series if you'd like to go visit that. It is facebook.com/indieimpressions, and you can go leave a like on there if you choose. You'll get every day's new updates delivered right into your Facebook stream, as well as news updates and channel updates and the occasional game giveaways and contests. Aside from that, though, there is also a Twitter handle for me if you want to get in touch with me for whatever reason. That Twitter handle is @RockLeeSmile, and you can just say, hey, if you want to give me a game suggestion or, you know, just want to talk about whatever's going on. I'm all good with that. I also have a contact form on the website if you want to send me your game for possible perusal on the actual channel or the show. And that is, again, at indie-impressions.com. All my social media links are right in the description, as well as the download link for this game, again, so feel free to go browse through there in case you missed anything, or in case, you know, I talk too quickly for you. Sometimes that happens. I actually went and set a freaking record while I was super distracted trying to plug my channel. Well, I beat 400 meters. I'm proud of myself. I didn't expect to be able to do that. So yeah, give it a shot. Let me know what you think. Talk to me in the comments, and I will see you next time. Remember to come back again tomorrow for another game. We're going to be doing LD coverage for another, like, 5 days at least, and then we'll be mixing it up a little bit from there. I do want to continue to cover games, but we'll also be doing some game dev requests thrown in as well. So be sure to come back again tomorrow for another game, and I will leave you with that. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Have a good night.